The Bread of Life Devotionals, karibuni sana. We are journeying through the book of Zechariah, and today we look at part 2 of chapter 1, the book of Zechariah. I will share a couple of reflections with us, and I pray that the Lord will minister to our hearts. In these few verses, the next few verses from verse 7, Zechariah sees his first vision, and the vision is that of horses. There is a rider, there are riders, the horses are of different colors, and again we see an angel also explaining to him the meaning of the vision. But what I'd want us to focus on is the message that God gives Zechariah to proclaim to his people. And there are 4 reflections that I want to share with us today, even based on that message that Zechariah received from the Lord as a result of that vision. In this few verses, we see an angel asking God, how long, God, will you be angry with the children of Israel? You know, you've been angry with them for these 70 years. When will you again show them mercy? And we see the Bible says that God spoke good and comforting words to the angel. And this is Zechariah recording because he was sort of observing the discussion through the vision of what was happening between the angels and God. And so God speaks through the angel. The angel is sent to proclaim to, the angel is sent to speak to Zechariah what God wanted his people to hear. And so reflection number 1, after the angel asked how long the people shall continue in captivity, and yet they had served 70 years, reflection number 1 is this one. God told Zechariah to go and proclaim. To proclaim is to shout. It is to declare something. And so God told Zechariah to tell the people that God is still zealous for them. Other versions say that he is jealous for the children of Israel. And this means that God is passionate about his love for the people of God. That his love for them is energetic. You know, that regardless of what they had done, the punishment and the judgment they had faced, the love of God towards them was still strong, it was still passionate, and it was still energetic. Reflection number 2, God told Zechariah to tell the children of Israel that he is angry with the nations that he used to punish his people. And these are the nations of Assyria and Babylon. Remember that God raised these nations as instruments, as tools to discipline his people because his people had failed to heed to his warnings. But here in these few verses, we see God say that even though they are at rest, these nations, he is angry with them because they went beyond what he had intended for them to do to the children of Israel. They intentionally went beyond, what God had purposed for them to do. And reflection number 3, God sends Zechariah to proclaim that Mount Zion and the city of Jerusalem will be rebuilt again. And God says that he will show mercy to Mount Zion and to Jerusalem. In fact, he says that the measurements of the town will be taken, and that speaks of restoration. It speaks of rebuilding even after the time of destruction that had come. And I want you to remember, even in this proclamation, the context right now is that the people had come back to Jerusalem, and they had come back to a city that is destroyed, because when they were being carried away into captivity, Jerusalem was destroyed by the Babylonians, and then the city was in ruins. So after Cyrus, the foreign king, had decreed, that anyone who wants to go back to Jerusalem to do so, the people were going back in bits. And of course, we know Zerubbabel went with a few, and then Nehemiah and Ezra, all these went with a few back to the land, the Jerusalem. And so God here is speaking to a people that have returned back to their nation, but they look at the state of things surrounding them, and they are in a place of discouragement and a lot of despair. And so God starts to speak a message of restoration to them. And lastly, God tells Zechariah to proclaim to the children of Israel that their towns would overflow with prosperity. I'm so blessed to hear the message of hope hope and restoration that God was telling his children. Then even though currently you're seeing ruins in Jerusalem, there's not much that is pleasant to the eyes. There is no much progress, but God here proclaims that the towns of Jerusalem would overflow with prosperity. And just as a point of application to you who is watching me today, I want you to know that sometimes when we look at our current circumstances in life, whether it is at a personal level, at a family level, at a society level, sometimes we get discouraged. Yet God may have proclaimed something and it seems as if it's slow in happening. We get discouraged. We have prayed about it. We have started the journey towards what God has proclaimed. But at some point we start, wondering, when will this word ever come to fulfillment? When will the promises of God ever come to fulfillment? And I want to remind us through the messages that God spoke to Zechariah to speak to his people, that God is faithful. God is a God of mercy. We see here in these few verses the attribute of God that is the attribute of mercy. He is a merciful God. Even though he had disciplined his people and sent them off to a foreign land, we see him still loving his people. His love does not change. The Bible says that the love of God is steadfast. It extends to the heavens. So God is a merciful God. God is a restorer, and God is a God that helps us to rebuild what is in ruins. I don't know what is in ruins in your life. I want to remind you today through this message of hope that God is rebuilding. Please be encouraged. Go back to what he has spoken and let us firmly hold on to this word of faith, because God is a keeper of his word. Thank you for taking time to join me for this week's devotional. If you're new here, please subscribe. May the Lord greatly bless you for watching. God bless you.